The alien assassin's two hearts nearly exploded from shock when he saw his human target lovingly petting a monstrous killing machine like it was a harmless kitten. Spica was the deadliest Tzenkethi warrior, an unstoppable force of death sent to eliminate the human Robert Powell before his conservation work could threaten the alien's plan for galactic conquest. But upon arriving on Earth, the assassin quickly realized this mission would be unlike any other. As Spica surveilled Powell, he watched in utter disbelief while the human fearlessly interacted with Earth's apex predators: lions, bears, sharks, beasts that could rip a Tzenkethi to shreds in seconds. Yet Powell walked among them unharmed, wrestling playfully with the pride of lions as if they were docile pets. It defied everything Spica knew about the universe. Humans were meant to be weak, inferior, easily crushed under the Tzenkethi Empire's heel. But seeing Powell command such deadly creatures with ease shook Spica to his core. Determined to prove it a mere trick, the assassin approached a lion himself, only to have his hand viciously mauled, leaving him bleeding and shaken. Grudgingly forced to respect Powell's uncanny ability, Spica's curiosity overtook his killer instinct. He had to uncover the human's secret power. Posing as a fellow conservationist, Spica set out to befriend his target and learn his ways. But as Powell shared his philosophy of understanding nature and living in harmony with Earth's beasts, the hardened assassin felt his brutal Tzenkethi conditioning start to crack. With his whole worldview unraveling, Spica began to question his mission and consider a new path. But a message from his commander Zorg shattered any hope for redemption. A Tzenkethi kill team was on its way to complete the assassination, under orders to take out the treasonous Spica as well. The alien assassin would now have to choose between his ruthless past and an uncertain future, fighting alongside the very man he was sent to destroy. Spica's hand throbbed with pain as he followed Powell through the dense underbrush of the wildlife sanctuary. The human moved with a sure-footed grace, his steps light and nimble compared to Spica's clumsy, trudging gait. Powell glanced back, concern etched on his weathered face as he noticed Spica cradling his injured hand. "Let me take a look at that," Powell said, pausing to examine the deep gashes left by the lion's claws. He pulled a small first aid kit from his pack and began cleaning the wounds with practiced efficiency. Spica flinched, more from the unfamiliar sensation of being cared for than the sting of the antiseptic. As Powell worked, Spica's mind raced with the gravity of his decision. He had betrayed his people, his mission, everything he had ever known. And for what? The respect of a human? The chance to understand a power he could barely comprehend? Powell finished bandaging Spica's hand and met his gaze. "Thank you for warning me about the kill team. I know it couldn't have been an easy choice." Spica grunted, unsure how to respond. Tzenkethi weren't exactly known for their heartfelt conversations. "I want to learn your ways," he said finally, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. "Your connection to these creatures, it's unlike anything I've seen." A smile tugged at Powell's lips. "It's not just me. Every human has the potential for this bond, this understanding. We've just forgotten it, lost touch with our place in the natural world." Their conversation was cut short by the distant sound of an aircraft. Spica's eyes narrowed. "They're here." Powell nodded grimly. "Then let's give them a welcome they won't soon forget." They raced back to the sanctuary's main compound, where Powell's team was already mobilizing. An assortment of rugged men and women, armed with tranquilizer guns and nets, took up defensive positions. Elephants trumpeted, gorillas beat their chests, and wolves howled, sensing the impending danger. As the Tzenkethi ship descended, its angular black form stark against the blue sky, Spica felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. This was where he was meant to be, fighting alongside Powell and his creatures. The ship's hatch opened, revealing Zekra and her team of elite assassins. They emerged with fluid grace, their movements precise and lethal. Zekra's eyes locked onto Spica, her face twisting with contempt. "Traitor," she spat, leveling her plasma rifle at him. "You dishonor the Tzenkethi with your weakness." Spica held his ground, his own weapon steady. "No, Zekra. It is the Tzenkethi who have lost their way. We conquer without understanding, destroy without compassion. But there is another path. Zekra sneered. Spare me your newfound sentiment. You will die along with these pathetic humans. As the kill team advanced, Powell gave a sharp whistle. Instantly, the sanctuary erupted into a frenzy of snarls, roars, and screeches. The animals surged forward, a living tide of fur, feathers, and claws. The Tzenkethi commandos found themselves beset on all sides, their high-tech weaponry suddenly seeming inadequate against the raw fury of nature. Gorillas smashed through their ranks, elephants sent them flying, and big cats pounced with deadly precision. Amidst the chaos, Spica and Zekra fought hand-to-hand, their techniques evenly matched. They traded blows with brutal efficiency, neither giving ground. But as they clashed, Spica saw an opening. With a deft twist, he disarmed Zekra, sending her rifle skittering across the ground. Zekra's eyes widened in shock as Spica pressed his advantage. He drove her back, his strikes fueled by a newfound purpose. Just as he was about to deliver the final blow, Powell appeared at his side, adding his own considerable strength to the fight. Together they forced Zekra to her knees. She glared up at them, hatred burning in her eyes. "This isn't over," she hissed, even as Powell bound her hands behind her back. Spica looked around, taking in the scene of the battle. The Tzenkethi kill team lay scattered and unconscious, subdued by the combined efforts of Powell's team and the sanctuary's creatures. Pride swelled in his chest, tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning. As Dr. Singh tended to the wounded animals and conservationists secured the captured assassins, Spica turned to Powell. "Zorg will come," he said grimly, "and he won't stop until Earth is under Tzenkethi control." Powell clasped Spica's shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. "Then we'll be ready for him. Together we'll show the Tzenkethi the true strength of Earth." Spica nodded, his persistence hardening. He had found his place, his purpose, and he would fight to his last breath to defend it. The celebration of their victory was short-lived. As the last echoes of battle faded, Spica and Powell found themselves facing an even greater challenge. The Tzenkethi threat loomed larger than ever, with Commander Zorg's fleet approaching Earth at an alarming rate. "We need to warn everyone," Powell said, his voice tight with urgency. "The entire planet needs to prepare." Spica nodded grimly. "I'll provide all the intel I have on Tzenkethi tactics and weaponry, but will your world leaders listen?" They worked tirelessly, reaching out to governments and military commanders across the globe. Many dismissed their warnings as far-fetched conspiracy theories. It wasn't until they arranged a live broadcast with the captured Zekra that the tide began to turn. "The Tzenkethi Empire will crush your pathetic world," Zekra snarled, her eyes blazing with hatred. "Commander Zorg's fleet will darken your skies and—" Powell cut the feed, but the damage was done. Within hours, Earth's defenses were mobilizing on an unprecedented scale. As they coordinated with military strategists, Dr. Singh approached them with an unconventional idea. "We might be able to use Earth's fauna as a secret weapon," she explained, her eyes alight with scientific fervor. "If we can amplify the human-animal bond that Robert has demonstrated, we could create an army that Tzenkethi won't expect." Spica's mandibles twitched uneasily. "Weaponize the animals? But they're not soldiers. They're innocent." Powell placed a hand on Spica's shoulder. "I understand your hesitation, but this might be our only chance to save them, and ourselves." Reluctantly, Spica agreed. They dubbed the initiative Project Noah's Ark and got to work immediately. Powell and Dr. Singh gathered a menagerie of Earth's most formidable creatures: gorillas, grizzlies, big cats, and more. Spica provided crucial insights into Tzenkethi biology, helping them train the animals to target specific alien weak points. Days turned into weeks as they prepared. The first Tzenkethi ships appeared in Earth's orbit like ominous stars. The planet's combined military forces engaged them in a fierce space battle, fills the sky with explosions and debris. On the ground, tension mounted. Powell paced nervously in the Wildlife Sanctuary's command center, monitoring the battle above. Spica stood beside him, his alien features set in iron will. A deafening roar shook the building. Outside, the sky darkened as Tzenkethi dropships pierced the atmosphere, They touched down in cities across the globe, disgorging heavily armed shock troopers onto Earth's streets. "It's time," Powell said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. They mobilized their unconventional army. Spica marveled at the sight of Earth's apex predators moving with coordinated purpose. Elephants trumpeted defiance as they charged Tsenkethi positions. Wolves and big cats slipped through urban battlefields, striking with deadly precision. The Tsenkethi soldiers faltered, clearly unprepared for this kind of resistance. Their energy weapons proved less effective against the thick hides and quick reflexes of Earth's fauna. Reports flooded in from around the world of similar successes. Amidst the chaos of battle, a massive Tsenkethi command ship descended from the clouds. Its hatches opened, revealing the imposing figure of Commander Zorg himself. The Tsenkethi leader's eyes locked onto Spica and Powell, burning with cold fury. "Abominations!" Zorg's voice boomed across the battlefield. "You dare challenge the might of the Tsenkethi Empire with these beasts?" Spica stepped forward, placing himself between Zorg and Powell. "Your empire is built on ignorance and cruelty, Zorg. We've found a better way." With a roar of rage, Zorg charged at Spica. The two aliens clashed in a whirlwind of strikes, their movements almost too fast for the human eye to follow. Powell watched in awe as Spica matched Zorg blow for blow, his newfound convictions giving him strength. As they fought, Powell rallied the animals for a final push. Gorillas beat their chests and charged. Lions roared defiance. The air filled with the sounds of Earth's creatures united against the alien threat. Spica managed to knock Zorg's weapon from his hand, sending it skittering across the ground. "It's over, Zorg," he panted. "Look around you. Earth will never submit." Zorg's eyes blazed with hatred. With a guttural cry, he lunged at Spica, claws extended for a killing blow. Time seemed to slow as Spica braced for the impact. Suddenly, a massive shape interposed itself between them. One of Powell's gorillas, a silverback named Caesar, caught Zorg's attack with one powerful arm. The Tsenkethi commander's eyes widened in shock as Caesar effortlessly lifted him off the ground. The battlefield fell silent. Tsenkethi and humans alike stared in disbelief at the sight of their supreme commander, helpless in the grip of an earth animal. Zorg's mandibles worked soundlessly, his entire worldview crumbling before his eyes. "Stand down," Zorg finally croaked. "All Tsenkethi forces, stand down." As the alien invaders began to withdraw, a cheer rose from Earth's defenders. Humans embraced their animal companions, the bonds between them stronger than ever. Powell turned to Spica, a triumphant smile on his face. But the smile faded as he saw Spica sway on his feet. The alien's skin had taken on a sickly pallor, and his breathing came in ragged gasps. "Spica?" Powell reached out to steady his friend. "What's wrong?" Spica opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the ground. "No!" Powell cried, dropping to his knees beside the fallen alien. "Dr. Singh, we need help here." As medics rushed to Spica's side, Powell gripped his hand tightly. The once deadly assassin had become more than an ally. He was family now, and Powell wasn't about to let him go without a fight. The steady beep of medical equipment filled the sterile hospital room. Spica lay motionless, his alien physiology a challenge for the Earth doctors who worked tirelessly to keep him alive. Powell sat hunched in an uncomfortable chair, his eyes never leaving his friend's prone form. Dr. Singh entered, her lab coat rustling as she checked Spica's vitals. "Any change?" Powell asked, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. She shook her head. "His condition remains critical, but stable. We're doing everything we can." Powell nodded, reaching out to grip Spica's hand. As his fingers touched the alien's scaly skin, Spica's body tensed. His eyes flickered rapidly beneath closed lids, lost in some internal struggle. In Spica's mind, memories flooded back with crystal clarity. He stood on the harsh, rocky terrain of the Tsenkethi homeworld, a young recruit trembling before his combat instructor. "Weakness is death," the grizzled veteran snarled, striking Spica across the face. "Mercy is for prey." The scene shifted. Spica, older now, moved through a series of brutal training exercises. His body was pushed beyond its limits, his mind assaulted with propaganda and conditioning. Every trace of compassion was methodically stripped away, replaced by cold efficiency and unquestioning loyalty to the Empire. In the hospital room, Speaks' breathing quickened. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the monitors beeped insistently. Dr. Singh rushed to adjust his medication, her brow furrowed with concern. Deep in his subconscious, Spica relived his final test. He stood in a stark white room, facing a bound alien prisoner. The creature's eyes were wide with terror, pleading silently for mercy. A disembodied voice commanded, "Kill it!" Spica's hand shook as he raised his weapon. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in. The prisoner's fear mirrored his own, a shared vulnerability that pierced through years of conditioning. But training took over. Spica pulled the trigger, watching the light fade from those alien eyes. In the present, Spica's eyes snapped open. He gasped, struggling against the tubes and wires that surrounded him. Powell leapt to his feet, placing a calming hand on Spica's shoulder. "It's okay," he soothed. "You're safe. You're on Earth." Recognition slowly dawned in Spica's eyes. He relaxed, taking in his surroundings. Dr. Singh approached, her voice gentle. "Welcome back, Spica. You've been through quite an ordeal." As the days passed, Spica's strength gradually returned. He spent long hours in conversation with Powell and Dr. Singh, grappling with the weight of his past actions. "I was a weapon," he confessed one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. "Programmed to kill without question." Dr. Singh nodded, her eyes filled with compassion. "But you broke free of that programming. You chose a different path." Powell leaned forward, his gaze intense. "You saved Earth, Spica. You proved that change is possible, even for the Tsenkethi." Spica absorbed their words, feeling a tentative hope blossom within him. Yet a shadow lingered. "There are more like me out there," he said grimly. "The Tsenkethi Empire won't give up so easily." Powell's expression hardened with drive. "Then we'll face them together. But first, you need to heal, body and mind." As Spica's recovery progressed, he found unexpected solace in Dr. Singh's company. Her calm demeanor and insightful questions helped him navigate the tumultuous landscape of his emotions. With her guidance and Powell's unwavering support, Spica began to confront the traumas of his past. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the hospital window, Spica made a decision. He turned to Powell, his alien features set with commitment. "I want to help prevent another invasion," he stated. "My knowledge of Tsenkethi tactics, their weaknesses, it could be invaluable." Powell nodded, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "We'll need to tread carefully. The world is still reeling from the attack. But with your insider perspective, we might just have a chance to stop the next one before it starts." Dr. Singh smiled, pride evident in her expression. "You've come so far, Spica. Whatever path you choose, know that you have allies here on Earth." Spica looked between them, feeling a sense of belonging he'd never known before. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't facing it alone. Spica stood at the viewport of the Tsenkethi cruiser, his alien eyes fixed on the stars beyond. The familiar hum of the ship's engines vibrated through the deck plates, a sensation that once brought comfort, but now filled him with unease. "Approaching Outpost Zeta 9, a monotone voice announced over the intercom. Spica's mandibles twitched, the only outward sign of the tension coiling within him. Months of meticulous planning had led to this moment. He thought back to the long nights spent with Powell and Dr. Singh, poring over intelligence reports and crafting his elaborate deception. The outpost loomed into view, a jagged construct of metal and stone floating in the void. Spica's grip tightened on the datapad containing his fabricated evidence. As the ship docked, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for the performance of a lifetime. Commander Zorg waited in the docking bay, flanked by heavily armed guards. His eyes narrowed as Spica approached, scanning for any sign of deception. "So," Zorg growled, "the prodigal assassin returns." Spica dropped to one knee, head bowed in a show of submission. "Commander, I bring vital information on the traitors in our midst." Zorg's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Follow me." They moved through the station's corridors, passing suspicious glances from other Tsinkethi. In Zorg's private chambers, Spica activated his datapad, projecting a holographic web of connections and communications. "As you suspected, Commander," Spica began, his voice steady, "the Earth invasion was compromised from within, but the scope of the betrayal is far greater than we imagine." Zorg's eyes widened as Spica wove his tale, naming high-ranking officials and presenting doctored evidence of their treachery. With each revelation, the commander's paranoia grew visibly. This changes everything," Zorg muttered, pacing the room. "We must act quickly to root out these vermin." Spica nodded solemnly. "I've taken the liberty of compiling a list of those we can still trust. With your permission, I can begin coordinating our response immediately." Zorg studied Spica for a long moment, conflict clear in his alien features. Finally, he touched a panel on his desk. "Your clearance is reinstated, but know this, Spica. I'll be watching you closely." As if on cue, the door slid open to reveal Zekra. The female Tsinkethi's eyes locked onto Spica, burning with awe-inspiring hostility. "Zekra will be your partner in this investigation," Zorg announced. "I trust you two can set aside any lingering animosity from the Earth debacle." Spica inclined his head. "Of course, Commander. The Empire's security is paramount." As they left Zorg's chambers, Zekra fell into step beside Spica. Her voice was low, filled with venom. "I don't know what game you're playing, traitor, but I will uncover the truth." Spica met her gaze coolly. "Then we share the same goal, Zekra. Let us hope your suspicions don't blind you to the real threat." Over the following weeks, Spica walked a precarious tightrope. By day, he worked tirelessly to sow discord among the Tsinkethi hierarchy, feeding Zorg's paranoia with carefully crafted lies. By night, he communicated in secret with Powell and Dr. Singh, relaying crucial intelligence on Tsinkethi operations. Zekra shadowed his every move, her eyes constantly searching for any misstep. Spica could feel her net closing in, knew that time was running short, but he pressed on, driven by the memory of Earth's united stand against tyranny. As tensions within the Tsinkethi ranks reached a fever pitch, Zorg called for an emergency summit of his top commanders. Spica received the summons with a mix of anticipation and dread. This was the moment he had been working towards, a chance to cripple the Tsinkethi war machine from within. In his quarters, Spica activated the secure channel to Earth one last time. Powell's holographic form flickered to life, concern etched on his face. "You don't have to go through with this," Powell said softly. "We can extract you now." Spica shook his head. "No, we may never get another opportunity like this. Whatever happens, promise me you'll use the information I've gathered to protect Earth." Dr. Singh's voice came through, steady and reassuring. "We're with you, Spica. Always." As the communication ended, Spica allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. Then, squaring his shoulders, he stepped out to face whatever fate awaited him at the summit. The air in the conference chamber crackled with tension as Spica took his seat among the gathered Tsinkethi commanders. Zorg's eyes darted from face to face, searching for signs of treachery. As Spica began his presentation, a commotion at the far end of the room drew all eyes. Zekra burst through the doors, her mandibles quivering with nearly unleashed rage. "Commander Zorg," she hissed, "I have proof of the real traitor in our midst." Zekra's evidence unfolded before the stunned assembly. Intercepted communications, falsified reports, all pointing to Spica's collaboration with the humans. The room erupted into chaos as Zorg's loyalists trained their weapons on Spica. Time slowed to a crawl as Spica's mind raced. His carefully constructed plan lay in ruins, but a desperate idea took shape. With lightning speed, he tapped a series of commands into his wrist computer. Alarms blared throughout the station as Spica's viral code infiltrated the summit systems. Screens flickered to life, broadcasting his message to every Tsinkethi outpost. "This is Agent Spica," his voice rang out. "Tsinkethi command has been compromised. Initiate Protocol Omega." Across the Empire, databanks began to purge themselves. Years of intelligence, battle plans, and strategic information vanished in an instant. Zorg roared in fury, lunging for Spica. But before he could reach him, the far wall exploded inward. Through the breach poured Powell, Dr. Singh, and a team of heavily armed humans. "Spica!" Powell shouted over the din of weapons fire. "This way!" Chaos engulfed the summit as Spica fought his way to Powell's side. Dr. Singh provided covering fire, her aim surprisingly precise for a scientist. Together they battled through waves of Tsenkethi guards. "The hangar bay," Spica gasped as they sprinted down a corridor. "There's a scout ship we can use." They reached the hangar just as Zekra's voice echoed over the intercom. "All ships, this is Acting Commander Zekra. Spica and his human allies have escaped. Pursue and destroy." Powell slammed his palm against the launch controls, sending their stolen vessel hurtling into space. On the console, they watched as the Tsenkethi armada regrouped, turning its sights on a new target, Earth. "No," Spica whispered, as the first salvos rained down on his adopted home. Cities burned, defenses crumbled, and millions of lives were snuffed out in an instant. Dr. Singh's hand gripped his shoulder. "We need a plan, Spica, fast." Spica's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. "There," he pointed to the massive flagship at the center of the Tsenkethi formation. "If we can take control of that ship, we might have a chance to stop this." Powell nodded grimly. "I'll put out the call. Every fighter we've got left, human or alien, we're going to need them all." As their stolen ship raced back toward Earth, Spica began to outline his daring plan. It was a long shot, but with the planet's fate hanging in the balance, it was their only hope. Hours later, a ragtag fleet of Earth's remaining defenders gathered in low orbit. Spica stood before them, his alien features set with tenacity. "I won't lie to you," he addressed the assembled warriors. "This mission is almost certainly a one-way trip, but if we succeed, we can save countless lives and strike a crippling blow against the Tsenkethi war machine." A chorus of grim acknowledgments echoed through the comm channels. These were beings who had lost everything to Zekra's brutal assault. They had nothing left to lose. "For Earth," Powell's voice rang out and the attack began. The human fleet swarmed toward the Tsenkethi armada, drawing their fire and creating a chaotic distraction. Under the cover of this assault, Spica's strike team maneuvered their ship toward the underbelly of the massive Tsenkethi flagship. Cutting torches flared to life as they breached the hull. Spica led the charge into the ship's interior, his knowledge of Tsenkethi design guiding them through a maze of corridors and access shafts. Alarms blared as they fought their way deeper into the vessel. Tsenkethi defenders poured into the hallways, forcing Spica and his team into vicious close-quarters combat. "We're running out of time," Dr. Singh shouted over the din, checking a portable scanner. "Zekra's redirecting more forces to our position." Spica nodded, gesturing toward a heavily reinforced door. "The bridge is just beyond there. Once we're inside, I can override their systems." As if on cue, the door slid open. Zekra stood in the entrance, her eyes blazing with hatred. "You," she snarled, drawing her ceremonial blade. "I will end this myself." Spica stepped forward, his own weapon at the ready. "Powell, Dr. Singh, secure the bridge. I'll deal with Zekra." The two aliens circled each other, a lifetime of training and bitter rivalry distilled into this moment. Zekra struck first, her blade a blur of motion. Spica parried, using his opponent's momentum against her. Their duel raged across the bridge as Powell and the others subdued the remaining Tsenkethi crew. Consoles sparked and screens shattered under the force of their battle. Zekra pressed her attack, driving Spica back toward the viewscreen. Earth hung in the background, a somber reminder of what was at stake. "You betrayed everything we stand for," Zekra hissed, her blade slicing through the air. Spica ducked under the strike, bringing his own weapon up in a swift arc. "No," he replied, his voice steady. "I found something worth fighting for." With a final, decisive movement, Spica disarmed his opponent. Zekra stumbled backward, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's over," Spica said, turning to the main control console. "Now to end this war." As his fingers flew across the alien interface, the flagship systems came under his control. One by one, the weapons of the Tsenkethi armada powered down. Spica allowed himself a moment of relief, But he knew the battle was far from won. Earth lay devastated, its defenses in ruins. And somewhere out in the vast expanse of space, the remaining Tsenkethi forces were regrouping, already planning their next move. "We've won the day," Powell said, coming to stand beside him. "But what happens next?" Spica's gaze remained fixed on the battered earth below. "We rebuild," he said softly, "and we prepare." Spica's fingers flew across the alien interface, his mind racing as he accessed the flagship's core systems. Within moments, the Tsenkethi Armada's weapons powered down, their deadly barrage on Earth halting abruptly. "It's done," Spica announced, his voice tight with concentration. "But we need to act fast. The other ships will realize what's happened soon." Powell nodded grimly, activating his comlink. "All units, this is General Powell. The flagship is under our control. Commence Operation Thunderbolt." The view screen erupted into chaos as human fighters swarmed from their hidden positions, engaging the now vulnerable Tsenkethi ships. Spica worked feverishly at the console, relaying tactical data to the Earth forces. "There," he pointed, highlighting a weakness in a Tsenkethi cruiser's shields. "Target that junction. It'll cascade through their entire power grid." Dr. Singh's eyes widened as she processed the stream of information. "Spica, how did you—" "Later," he cut her off, already moving to the next target. "We need to press our advantage while we have it." On the surface below, Powell's ground forces sprang into action. The general's voice crackled over the comm. "Deploying Noah's Ark regiments now. Let's see how the Tsenkethi handle a stampede." Spica allowed himself a moment of awe as he watched elephants charge Tsenkethi lines, scattering the alien shock troopers. Human resistance fighters emerged from hiding, capitalizing on the chaos. A proximity alarm blared, jerking Spica's attention back to their immediate surroundings. "We've got company," he warned, bringing up the internal security feed. Zekra's elite strike team poured through the breach they'd created, their weapons already blazing. Spica grabbed a fallen Tsenkethi's disruptor, shouting to Powell and Dr. Singh, "Hold the bridge! I'll bottleneck them in the corridor." He ducked into the narrow hallway, using his knowledge of Tsenkethi tactics to anticipate their movements. The air filled with the acrid smell of weapons fire as Spica held his ground, each shot finding its mark with deadly precision. Meanwhile, Powell's voice came through the comm, tense but controlled. "Team Alpha in position, breaching Zekra's command post now." Spica felt a surge of admiration for the human general's audacity. He redoubled his efforts, determined to buy Powell the time he needed. Suddenly, a familiar tone echoed through the ship, the sound of a reactor going critical. Spica's blood ran cold as he realized Zekra's final play. "Powell, Singh!" he shouted into his comm. "Get off the ship now. She set the reactor to overload." Racing back to the bridge, Spica's mind whirled through possibilities. There was only one option, but it would come at a terrible cost. "I can eject the reactor core," he explained rapidly, his fingers already inputting the commands. "But someone needs to stay behind to complete the sequence." Dr. Singh stepped forward, her face set with purpose. "I'll do it. You and Powell—" "No," Spica cut her off firmly. "This is my responsibility, my atonement." As alarms blared around them, Spica locked eyes with his human allies. In that moment, volumes passed between them, gratitude, respect, and a shared hope for the future. "Now go," Spica urged, turning back to the console. "There isn't much time." As Powell and Dr. Singh reluctantly retreated to an escape pod, Spica recorded his final message. The ship shuddered around him as he worked, the reactor's instability growing by the second. With a deep breath, Spica initiated the ejection sequence. The flagship lurched as the reactor separated, hurtling into deep space. Spica sprinted for the last remaining escape pod, launching just as the shockwave hit. The pod tumbled through space, battered by the titanic explosion. As the chaos subsided, Spica glimpsed the aftermath through the small viewport, scattered Tsenkethi ships in retreat, and the battered but unbroken planet Earth beyond. A proximity alert chimed, and Spica saw a human vessel approaching to retrieve him. Exhausted but alive, he allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in recent memory, hope felt tangible. Spica's escape pod docked with the human vessel, its airlock hissing open. Exhausted but alive, he stumbled into the ship's corridor. A crowd of human soldiers and technicians parted, revealing General Powell and Dr. Singh. "Welcome back, hero," Powell said, clasping Spica's shoulder. As the ship accelerated away from the battlefield, Spica gazed out a viewport at the retreating Tsenkethi forces. "We've won the day," he murmured, "but the real challenge lies ahead." In the weeks that followed, Spica found himself thrust into an unexpected role. Humanity hailed him as a savior, his face plastered across news broadcasts and public displays. But as the initial euphoria faded, a sobering reality set in. The war was a long way to go. Spica stood before a panel of Earth's military and political leaders, his alien features illuminated by the harsh light of the Situation Room. "We have an opportunity," he explained, gesturing to a holographic display of Tsenkethi territory. "Their leadership is in disarray. If we act now, we can open a dialogue." General Powell leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "You're proposing peace talks? With the same monsters who nearly wiped us out?" Spica nodded. "I was one of those monsters, General. If I can change, so can they." Dr. Singh spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "We should hear him out. Spica's unique perspective could be invaluable." After hours of heated debate, a plan took shape. Spica would leverage his status as a former Tsenkethi assassin to initiate secret negotiations with key factions, including his old nemesis, Zorg. The first meeting took place in a neutral space station orbiting a gas giant. Spica entered the conference room alone, acutely aware of the hostile glares from his former comrades. Zorg's massive frame dominated the gathering. "Traitor," he growled, mandibles clicking in nearly unleashed rage. "You dare show your face here?" Spica remained calm, activating a holoprojector. Images of Earth's cities and natural wonders filled the air. "I come with a vision," he began, "of a future where our peoples not only coexist but thrive together." For hours, Spica spoke of his experiences on Earth, of the radical shift in his worldview. He described the intricate symbiosis between humans and their planet's diverse ecosystem, challenging the Tsenkethi's deeply held beliefs about genetic superiority. Most dismissed his words outright, but Spica noticed a flicker of curiosity in some eyes. It was a start. Over the following months, Spica tirelessly pursued his mission. Each negotiation chipped away at the Tsenkethi's dogmatic armor. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, attitudes began to shift. The breakthrough came during a carefully orchestrated summit on Earth. Powell and Dr. Singh had transformed a sprawling nature preserve into a neutral meeting ground. Tsenkethi diplomats arrived, still wary but no longer openly hostile. As delegates gathered in an open-air amphitheater, Powell stepped forward. A low rumble echoed through the trees, and gasps erupted from the Tsenkethi as a pride of lions emerged, flanking the human general. "Behold," Powell's voice rang out, "the power of mutual respect and understanding." The Tsenkethi watched in stunned silence as Powell calmly directed the massive predators with subtle gestures. Dr. Singh joined him, accompanied by a towering grizzly bear that moved with surprising grace. Spica seized the moment, addressing the assembly. "This is the essence of humanity's strength," he declared. "Not dominance through force, but harmony through empathy." A murmur rippled through the Tsenkethi delegates. Spica could sense the first real cracks forming in their worldview. It was time for the ultimate attempt. "Zorg," Spica called out, locking eyes with his former commander. "I challenge you to take the first step. Show your people the courage to embrace a new path." The massive Tsenkethi hesitated, centuries of ingrained hatred warring with an awakening curiosity. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Zorg rose from his seat and approached the Earth delegation. Powell nodded to one of the lions, a magnificent male with a flowing mane. The great cat padded forward, stopping just short of Zorg. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, with agonizing slowness, Zorg extended a clawed appendage. The lion raised its massive paw. As their limbs met in a tentative touch, Spica allowed himself a smile. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a beginning. Beginning. A ripple of astonishment passed through the assembled delegates, as they witnessed the unprecedented interaction between Zorg and the lion. Spica seized the moment, his voice carrying across the amphitheater. "This is but the first step. We have the power to forge a new path, one of mutual understanding and cooperation." In the days that followed, the summit's historic ceasefire held firm. Spica and Powell, once bitter enemies, now found themselves unlikely allies in building a movement for interspecies cooperation. Spica addressed a gathering of Tsenkethi soldiers, his words transmitted across light years to reach their scattered forces. "I stand before you not as a traitor, but as one who has seen a better way. Our empire's xenophobic ways have brought us nothing but endless conflict. It is time for change." His message resonated with many, particularly the younger generation of Tsenkethi weary of war. A reform faction began to take shape, with Spica as its reluctant figurehead. Powell leveraged Earth's military victory to push for demilitarization. "We have the upper hand," he told the UN Security Council, "but true victory lies in peace, not subjugation." Together, Spica and Powell implemented outreach programs, allowing disillusioned Tsenkethi soldiers to experience Earth firsthand. The first group arrived at a wildlife sanctuary in Kenya, their mandibles clicking nervously as they disembarked. Dr. Singh greeted them, gesturing toward the savanna stretching before them. "Welcome to Earth. What you're about to witness may challenge everything you've been taught about our world." As the sun rose, painting the sky in brilliant hues, a herd of elephants emerged from the morning mist. The Tsenkethi watched in stunned silence as Dr. Singh approached the massive creatures, gently stroking their trunks. "Impossible," one Tsenkethi soldier muttered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Over the following weeks, the Tsenkethi visitors observed humans interacting harmoniously with a vast array of species. They witnessed marine biologists swimming alongside pods of dolphins, falconers working in perfect sync with birds of prey, and even the delicate symbiosis between humans and the billions of microorganisms that lived within them. Word spread quickly through Tsenkethi space. Grainy footage of humans communing with Earth's megafauna went viral, shattering long-held beliefs about human savagery. A wave of dissent swept through Tsenkethi ranks, with more and more soldiers defecting to join Spica's reform movement. Zorg, once the unquestioned leader of the Tsenkethi forces, found himself increasingly isolated. His support base dwindled as the reform movement gained momentum. In a desperate bid to maintain control, he retreated to a heavily fortified compound deep in Tsenkethi territory. Late one night, as Spica pored over intelligence reports, an urgent transmission came through. Zorg's haggard face filled the screen, his eyes wild with desperation. "This is your final warning," Zorg snarled. "Grant my forces unconditional surrender terms, or I'll unleash a bioweapon that will wipe humanity from existence." Spica's blood ran cold. He knew Zorg well enough to recognize this was no empty threat. Within hours, he had assembled a strike team, a mix of his most trusted Tsenkethi reformers and Powell's elite human operatives. Their ships slipped through Tsenkethi defenses, cloaked by technology Spica had once used to infiltrate Earth. As they approached the bioweapon facility, Spica addressed his team. "We face fierce resistance," he said, his voice steady. "But the fate of two species hangs in the balance. We cannot fail." The assault began with precision and stealth, but soon erupted into chaos. Zorg's loyalists fought with the desperation of those who knew defeat meant the end of their way of life. Spica led from the front, his years of assassin training serving him well as he navigated the labyrinthine facility. In a darkened corridor, Spica came face to face with a figure from his past, his old mentor, the one who had molded him into a ruthless killer. The mentor's eyes narrowed with contempt. "So, the prodigal son returns," the mentor sneered, drawing a wicked-looking blade. "I should have known you were too weak for our cause." Spica raised his own weapon, a mix of emotions churning within him. "You taught me to be a monster," he replied. "I've learned to be something more." Their battle was swift and brutal, years of shared training evident in every move. But where the mentor fought with cold efficiency, Spica fought with newfound purpose. In a decisive moment, Spica disarmed his former teacher, pinning him against the wall. The mentor spat in his face. Finish it, traitor. It's what I taught you. Spica's grip tightened for a moment, then relaxed. No, he said softly. That's not who I am anymore. With the mentor subdued and the bioweapon secured, Spica accessed the facility's communication array. His face broadcast to every Tsinkethi ship and outpost. Brothers, sisters, the war is over, he began, his voice carrying the weight of all he had experienced. I have seen the truth of humanity, of Earth. There is another way, a better way. Lay down your arms. Join us in building a future of cooperation, not conflict. Across the galaxy, Tsinkethi soldiers listened. Some sneered, some wept, but many, more than anyone could have predicted, made the choice to stand down. As reports flooded in of Tsinkethi forces surrendering, Spica allowed himself a moment of hope. The path ahead would not be easy, but for the first time, it seemed possible. In the command center of the captured facility, Powell approached Spica, a grim smile on his face. We've got a location on Zorg, he said. He's making a run for it. Spica nodded, his commitment hardening. Then let's end this, once and for all. Spica and Powell's pursuit of Zorg led them to a desolate moon on the fringes of Tsinkethi space. Their ship touched down silently, its cloaking field shimmering as it deactivated. Spica's mandibles clicked with nervous energy as he stepped onto the barren surface. He's close, Spica muttered, his alien senses picking up traces of Zorg's pheromone trail. This way. They crept through a maze of jagged rock formations, weapons at the ready. Powell's eyes darted from shadow to shadow, years of combat experience evident in his fluid movements. A plasma bolt sizzled past Spica's head, scorching the stone behind him. Contact! Powell shouted, diving for cover. Zorg's voice boomed across the rocky terrain. You should have killed me when you had the chance, traitor. The firefight was intense but brief. Zorg, for all his bluster, was outmatched and outnumbered. As Powell's team closed in, the Tsinkethi warlord found himself cornered against a sheer cliff face. Spica approached his former commander, weapon lowered. It's over, Zorg. Surrender and we can... A hidden weapon in Zorg's armor discharged, the energy blast catching Spica square in the chest. He crumpled to the ground as Powell's team subdued Zorg. Spica! Powell rushed to his fallen comrade's side. Medic! We need a medic here now! The weeks that followed saw a flurry of activity across both human and Tsinkethi space. News of Zorg's capture spread rapidly, galvanizing the reform movement. Spica, though gravely wounded, became a symbol of hope for both species. As Spica recovered in a high-tech medical facility, Powell worked tirelessly to solidify the fragile peace. He addressed a joint assembly of human and Tsinkethi representatives. We stand at a crossroads, Powell's voice rang out. The path ahead is unclear, but we must walk it together. Spica's journey from assassin to peacemaker resonated deeply with many Tsinkethi. Defections from the old guard increased, swelling the ranks of the reformists. Yet not all embraced change. A hardline faction, incensed by what they saw as Spica's betrayal, plotted in the shadows. Months passed. Spica, fully recovered, stood beside Powell at a solemn gathering. Human and Tsinkethi alike had come to honor those lost in the invasion. The mood was somber but hopeful. As Spica began to speak, a series of sharp cracks split the air. Plasmid-laced slugs tore through the crowd. Powell's instincts kicked in instantly. He barked orders to his security team while gesturing to the trained predators at his side. Lions and wolves fanned out, their enhanced senses pinpointing the assassins' positions with uncanny accuracy. Security forces moved in, neutralizing the threat with brutal efficiency. But the damage was done. Spica staggered, a thin trail of green blood seeping from a wound in his side. The toxin worked quickly, overwhelming his alien physiology. No! Powell caught Spica as he collapsed. Stay with me, damn it! Medical teams swarmed around them, but it was clear their efforts were futile. The poison had been tailored specifically for Tsinkethi biology. Spica's mandibles trembled as he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Thank you, my friend. You showed me a better way. Powell gripped Spica's hand tightly, his voice thick with emotion. We're not done yet. There's still so much to do. Then you must carry on. Spica's eyes began to glaze over. Promise me, don't let this be for nothing. As Spica's life ebbed away, Powell's commitment hardened. He stood facing the stunned crowd of humans and Senkethi. This ends now, he growled, his eyes blazing with willpower. No more half measures. We root out every last radical, every remnant of the old ways. Powell turned to his team, his voice cold and focused. Prep for immediate deployment. We have work to do.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.